The orbital station hung like a metal moon above the green planet below. Inside its white corridors, soldiers from 12 different species walked past each other. Some had scales. Some had 4 arms. Some had skin you could almost see through. They all wore the silver badge of the Galactic Coalition military. Danny Carter stood near a window and watched the planet turn slowly beneath him. He was 29 years old, with short brown hair and calm gray eyes. Back on Earth, he had spent 6 years teaching soldiers how to survive in the wilderness. Mountains, deserts, jungles, he knew them all. But this was different. This was space. This was aliens. This was everything humanity had dreamed about for centuries. 5 years ago, the Coalition had found Earth. They had studied humans for a while, decided they were not a threat, and offered them a place in galactic society. Most aliens thought of humans as useful workers, strong enough to lift heavy things, tough enough to survive harsh conditions. But soldiers? Warriors? That was a different question entirely. "You look worried," a voice said behind him. Danny turned to see Amy Turner walking toward him. She was 26, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She worked as a communications officer and served as the human liaison to the Coalition. Her job was to make sure humans and aliens understood each other. It was not an easy job. "Not worried," Danny said. "Just thinking. About tomorrow? About everything." Amy stood beside him and looked out the window. "The assessment is important, Danny. You know that. If you fail, it could hurt our chances. The Coalition still sees us as primitives. Strong primitives, but primitives." Danny nodded slowly. Tomorrow, he would participate in a stealth and reconnaissance test. Soldiers from different species would try to cross dangerous jungle terrain without being detected by drone sentries. Each species would show off their camouflage abilities. The Varax had light-bending suits that cost more than a small starship. The Nethics could change their skin color to match any background. The Scylothi could make their bodies almost completely transparent. Danny had none of these things. He had standard military clothes and basic equipment. Nothing special. Nothing advanced. "I know what I'm doing," he said quietly. Amy looked at him with concern. "Do you? Because those drones have sensors that can detect the heartbeat from 200 meters away. They can see heat signatures, electromagnetic fields, chemical traces. How are you going to hide from that?" Danny smiled slightly. "The old ways." Before Amy could ask what he meant, a door slid open behind them. A tall figure walked into the observation room. Commander Yeltrix was Varax, a reptilian species with green scales and yellow eyes. He stood almost 7 feet tall and moved with the confidence of someone who had fought in a dozen wars. "Sergeant Carter," he said, his voice deep and rough. "I hope you are prepared for tomorrow." "I am, Commander." Yeltrix looked at him the way someone might look at a small animal trying to climb a mountain. There was no cruelty in his eyes, but there was doubt. Plenty of doubt. "You understand what this assessment means," Yeltrix said. "High-ranking generals will be watching. They want to see if humans deserve full military status in the Coalition. Your performance will influence their decision. I understand." "Good." Yeltrix paused. "I have seen your file. You trained soldiers in wilderness survival on Earth. Impressive for a primitive world. But this is not Earth. The drones we use are the most advanced in the galaxy. They have detected Nethics assassins and Scylothi spies. They will detect you." Danny said nothing. Yeltrix continued. "I am not trying to discourage you. I am trying to prepare you. Failure is expected. No one will blame you for losing to superior technology. Just do your best and try not to embarrass your species too badly." With that, the commander turned and walked out. Amy let out a long breath. "Well, that was encouraging. He's not wrong," Danny said. "Their technology is better than anything we have. Then how are you going to beat it?" Danny looked back out the window at the jungle moon far below. Somewhere down there, tomorrow, he would have to prove that humans were more than just strong workers. He would have to show the galaxy that his species had value. Real value. Humans survived for 200,000 years before we had technology, he said. We hunted animals bigger than us. We hid from predators that could smell us from miles away. We became invisible in forests and grasslands and swamps. Not because we had machines, but because we learned to become part of the world around us. Amy frowned. You're going to use what? Sticks and mud against sensors that can detect a single drop of sweat? Something like that. She stared at him. Danny, this isn't a game. If you fail, I won't fail. His voice was calm, but there was something hard underneath it. Something certain. Amy had known Danny for 2 years, and she had never seen him nervous. Not once. Even now, facing technology that made human equipment look like children's toys, he seemed completely at peace. Get some rest, she said finally. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Danny nodded and watched her leave. Then he turned back to the window and studied the jungle moon again. He could see rivers cutting through the green like silver snakes. He could see mountains rising in the distance. He could see clouds drifting across the surface like lazy white animals. Somewhere down there, he would become invisible. Not with machines. Not with advanced technology. Just with mud, plants, patience, and 200,000 years of human evolution. The aliens thought they understood camouflage. They thought invisibility came from expensive suits and biological tricks. They had no idea what humans could do when they stopped being civilized and started being hunters again. Danny smiled to himself in the darkness. Tomorrow, he would show them. The transport ship descended through gray clouds and landed in a clearing surrounded by thick jungle. Danny felt the bump as the landing gear touched the ground. Through the small window beside him, he could see trees taller than buildings and vines hanging like green curtains. 20 soldiers stepped out of the ship. Danny was the only human among them. The others looked at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to amusement to open contempt. He was used to it by now. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had not yet earned respect. Commander Yeltrick stood on a raised platform near the edge of the clearing. Behind him, a large screen showed a map of the assessment area. 5 kilometers of dense jungle, filled with drone sentries. The goal was simple. Reach the extraction point on the other side without being detected. Listen carefully, Yeltrick said. This assessment will test your ability to move unseen through hostile territory. The drones have thermal sensors, electromagnetic scanners, motion trackers, and chemical detectors. They can find you by your body heat, your equipment, your movement, or even the chemicals in your sweat. If a drone detects you, you are eliminated. A Nephic soldier named Zorvan stood near the front of the group. He was tall and thin, with 4 arms and large black eyes that reflected light like polished stones. His species could change their skin color to match any background. They were considered some of the best natural hunters in the galaxy. What about the human? Zorvan asked loudly. Does he even have camouflage equipment? Several aliens laughed. Danny said nothing. Sergeant Carter will use whatever methods his species has developed, Yeltrick said. Each species may approach this assessment according to their own traditions and technologies. So he has nothing, Zorvan said. This should be entertaining. One bet he gets detected in the first 100 meters. More laughter. Danny remained silent and studied the map on the screen. He was memorizing the terrain, the rivers, the dense areas, the places where shadows would be deepest. One by one, the alien soldiers demonstrated their camouflage abilities. A Varax officer activated his light-bending suit. His body shimmered and then seemed to disappear. Danny could still see a faint outline if he looked carefully, but it was impressive. The suit bent light around the wearer, making him nearly invisible to the naked eye. "This suit costs 3 million credits," the Varak said proudly. "It blocks all thermal emissions and masks electromagnetic signatures. Nothing can detect me." Next, Zorvan stepped forward. His gray skin began to shift and change. Within seconds, he matched the colors of the jungle behind him perfectly: greens, browns, and deep shadows all blending together. His forearms seemed to disappear into the pattern of leaves and bark. "My species has evolved for millions of years to become perfect hunters," he said. "We can match any environment in seconds. No technology required." A Scilethi soldier moved forward. Her skin was naturally translucent, and as she concentrated, her body became almost completely see-through. She looked like a ghost made of glass. "We become invisible by becoming nothing," she said. "Our bodies let light pass through us. Even the best sensors struggle to find something that barely exists." Finally, everyone looked at Danny. "And the human?" Zorvan asked with a mocking smile. "What primitive trick will you show us?" Danny walked to the edge of the clearing and looked into the jungle. "I need 30 minutes to prepare before the assessment begins." Yeltrix frowned. "Prepare how?" "The human way." There was a moment of silence. Then Yeltrix nodded. "Granted. 30 minutes." Danny walked into the jungle alone. The other soldiers watched him go with confusion and amusement. What could he possibly do in 30 minutes that would help him against their advanced camouflage? In the command center above, Amy watched the monitors nervously. She could see Danny's figure moving through the trees, getting smaller and smaller until he disappeared into the green shadows. "He's insane," she whispered to herself. "He's completely insane." Cathala, a Salathi diplomat who had come to observe the assessment, stood beside her. Her translucent skin showed the gentle movement of fluids beneath the surface. She was studying humans for a scientific report. "Your species is interesting," Cathala said. "You evolved as pursuit predators, correct? You hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion." "Yes," Amy said. "But that doesn't help with camouflage." "Perhaps not. But it suggests your species has unexpected depths." Cathala tilted her head. "What is he doing in there?" Amy shook her head. "I don't know. Something old. Something from before we had technology." On the screen, Danny had vanished completely. Even the cameras tracking him had lost his position in the thick jungle. Back in the clearing, Zorvan was boasting to the other soldiers. "When the assessment begins, I will reach the extraction point in 2 hours. The human will be eliminated in minutes. It is simple biology. His species is not evolved for stealth." The other aliens nodded in agreement. Humans were strong and tough, but they were loud, obvious, and primitive. Everyone knew that 30 minutes passed. Commander Yeltrix activated his communicator. "Sergeant Carter, your preparation time has ended. Return to the clearing." There was no response. "Sergeant Carter, respond." Silence. The soldiers looked at each other. Had the human gotten lost? Had he quit? Then, from the edge of the jungle, a figure stepped into the light. At first, no one recognized him. The thing that emerged from the trees looked like a piece of the jungle itself. It was covered in dark mud from head to toe. Branches and leaves were woven into its clothing, breaking up every human outline. Its face was painted with plant pigments, greens and browns and blacks that made its features impossible to read. Only the eyes were visible. Calm gray eyes. "I'm ready," Danny said. The alien stared at him in stunned silence. Zorvan recovered first. "You covered yourself in mud? That's your camouflage." "Dirt?" He laughed loudly. "The drones will detect your body heat in seconds. They will smell the chemicals on your skin. They will track your movement through the undergrowth. You have done nothing. Danny said nothing. He simply turned and faced the jungle. Commander Yeltrix looked at the mud-covered human with something that might have been pity. Very well. The assessment begins in 5 minutes. Take your positions. The soldiers spread out along the edge of the clearing. Above them, drones hummed to life and rose into the air, their sensors scanning everything below. The most advanced detection technology in the galaxy. Versus a man covered in mud. Everyone knew how this would end. The signal came as a sharp tone that echoed through the jungle. The assessment had begun. 20 soldiers moved into the dense vegetation, each using their own methods to avoid detection. The Virax activated their light-bending suits and shimmered out of sight. The Nethics changed their skin colors to match the jungle around them. The Scythe became almost transparent, their ghostly forms drifting between the trees. Danny moved differently. He did not walk upright like the others. Instead, he lowered himself close to the ground and began to crawl. His movements were slow and deliberate. Every motion was planned. Every step was silent. In the command center orbiting above, Amy watched the screens with growing anxiety. Cathala stood beside her, studying the sensor readings with scientific curiosity. 14 targets detected and tracking, a technician reported. Thermal signatures, electromagnetic emissions, and chemical traces all registering. What about the human? Cathala asked. The technician frowned and checked his readings. Nothing yet. He might not have entered the assessment area. He entered, Amy said quietly. I watched him go in. Then the sensors should have found him by now. The technician shook his head. Maybe there's interference. The jungle is very dense. The first elimination came 7 minutes into the assessment. A Vorax soldier's light-bending suit flickered for just a moment, a tiny power fluctuation that lasted less than a second. But that was enough. A drone caught the electromagnetic spike and locked onto his position. Target eliminated, the computer announced. In the control room, Commander Yeltrix watched with his arms crossed. He was not surprised. Light-bending technology was impressive, but it required power. Power created signatures. Signatures could be detected. The second elimination came 12 minutes later. Zorvan, the confident Nethix hunter, had made excellent progress. His color-changing skin was a perfect match for the jungle. But the drones did not only see visible light. They could detect heat, and Zorvan's body was slightly warmer than the vegetation around him. When a drone passed overhead, it caught his thermal outline against the cooler leaves. Target eliminated. Zorvan's voice came over the communication channel, filled with disbelief. That is impossible. My camouflage was perfect. Your visual camouflage was perfect, Yeltrix said calmly. Your thermal signature was not. Continue to the observation area. More eliminations followed. The Scythe, despite their transparent bodies, still had internal organs that produced heat. The drones found them. Other species were detected by chemical traces, sweat, breath, even the natural oils on their skin. 1 hour passed. 15 of the 20 soldiers had been eliminated. Status report. Yeltrix demanded. The technician hesitated. Sir, we still have 5 soldiers undetected. 4 of them are using advanced technology that is successfully masking their signatures. But the 5th, the human? We cannot find him, sir. He does not appear on any sensor. Yeltrix leaned forward. Check the thermals. Nothing, sir. The mud he applied has cooled to match the surrounding environment. His body heat is completely masked. Electromagnetic? Nothing. He carries no technology that emits a signal. Chemical traces? The mud and plant materials have covered his natural scent. The sensors are detecting only organic jungle matter. Yeltrix stared at the screen. There were hundreds of small dots representing animals, insects, and plants. Somewhere in that chaos of life signs, a human was moving toward the extraction point, and they could not find him. "This is not possible," Yeltrix said slowly. "He is using mud, leaves. How can that defeat our sensors?" Cathela spoke up. "Commander, may I offer an observation?" "Speak." "The human has not defeated your sensors. Your sensors are working perfectly. They are detecting exactly what they were designed to detect: technology, heat signatures, electromagnetic emissions, and foreign chemical traces." She paused. "The problem is that the human has none of these things. He has made himself part of the jungle. Your sensors are looking for something that does not exist." On the ground below, Danny continued to move. He was not walking or running. He was flowing. Every motion matched the natural rhythm of the jungle around him. When the wind moved the branches above, he moved. When the wind stopped, he stopped. He became a shadow among shadows. The mud on his body had dried to match the dark earth beneath the trees. The leaves woven into his clothing rustled when the real leaves rustled. His breathing was slow and shallow, barely disturbing the air. His heartbeat was calm and steady, a predator's heartbeat. A drone passed 10 meters above him. Danny froze. He became a rock, a fallen log, a piece of the ground itself. The drone's sensors swept over his position. They detected decaying vegetation, warm soil, small insects moving through the underbrush, and moisture evaporating from broad leaves. They did not detect a human being because, at that moment, Danny Carter was not a human being. He was part of the jungle. He was the jungle. The drone moved on. 2 hours passed. 3 hours. In the command center, the mood had changed. What had started as amusement at the primitive human had become confusion, then disbelief, then something close to fear. The 4 remaining alien soldiers with advanced technology had all been eliminated. Their expensive equipment had betrayed them. A power fluctuation here, a slight heat variance there. Only Danny remained undetected. "Where is he?" Yeltrix demanded. The technicians searched every sensor, every frequency, every spectrum of light. They found nothing. Amy allowed herself a small smile. "He's doing it. He's actually doing it." Cathala's translucent face showed what might have been wonder. "Your species spent 200,000 years evolving without technology. You learned to hunt and hide using only what nature provided. We thought that made you primitive." She paused. "We were wrong. It made you something else entirely." On the ground, Danny reached the 4-kilometer mark. 1 more kilometer to the extraction point. His muscles ached from moving so slowly. His body was covered in sweat beneath the mud. But he did not stop. He did not speed up. He continued to move like a ghost, like a memory, like something that had never been there at all. The jungle did not reveal him, because the jungle did not know he was there. He had become invisible in the oldest way possible. He had become nothing. The door to the command center opened, and 3 figures walked in. Their uniforms carried more medals and insignia than anyone else in the room. These were the coalition generals, the highest-ranking military officers in this sector of the galaxy. General Morvax led them. He was an old Varax warrior. His green scales faded with age, but his yellow eyes still sharp and intelligent. Behind him came Admiral Senth, a Nethic strategist known for planning campaigns that conquered entire systems. The third was Observer Prime Velen, a Silathi diplomat whose word carried more weight than armies. "Report," General Morvax demanded. Commander Yeltrix straightened to attention. "Sir, the assessment is in its 4th hour. All alien participants have been eliminated. Only 1 soldier remains undetected." "One? Which species?" Yeltrix hesitated. "Human, sir." The 3 generals exchanged looks. Morvax stepped forward and studied the screens, showing sensor data from the jungle. "Below, you are telling me that a human and a primitive from a species that discovered space travel less than a century ago, has evaded our best detection technology? Yes, sir. Show me his position. We cannot, sir. He does not appear on any sensor. Morvax's eyes narrowed. That is not possible. Our drones can detect a heartbeat from 200 meters. They can identify individual chemical compounds in the air. They can see heat signatures through solid rock. How can they not find one human? Cathala stepped forward. If I may, General. Morvax waved his permission. I have been studying the situation carefully. I believe I have found evidence of the human's passage. She walked to one of the screens and pointed. Here, 3 hours and 17 minutes into the assessment. Watch this drone footage. The screen showed dense jungle vegetation. Nothing moved. Nothing seemed unusual. I see nothing, Morvax said. Exactly. Now, I will slow the footage to 1/10 speed. The image moved like a dream. Leaves drifted slowly in a gentle breeze. Shadows shifted as clouds passed overhead. And then, there, Cathala said. Everyone leaned forward. At first, no one could see anything. Then, slowly, a shape became visible. It was not moving. It was not breathing. It was simply part of the jungle floor mud, leaves and shadow arranged in a pattern that should not have been there. 2 eyes, barely visible, watched the drone pass overhead. Then the shape was gone, blending back into the chaos of vegetation. He was right there, Admiral Sant said, his voice filled with disbelief. 2 meters from the drone. And we saw nothing. The drone saw nothing, Cathala corrected, because there was nothing to see. No heat. The mud masked his body temperature. No electromagnetic signal. He carries no technology. No unusual chemicals. The plants and earth covered his natural scent. No movement. He became perfectly still. To every sensor we possess, he was invisible. Because he was not hiding from the jungle. He was the jungle. General Morvax turned to Amy, who had been standing quietly in the corner. You, human, explain this. Amy straightened. Sir, my species spent hundreds of thousands of years surviving without technology. We hunted animals that were faster and stronger than us. We hid from predators that could smell us from miles away. We learned to use our environment instead of fighting against it. She paused. Every child on Earth has heard stories of hunters who covered themselves in mud and grass to get close to prey. It is one of the oldest skills our species possesses. We just forgot how valuable it was. But our technology, Morvax began. Your technology looks for other technology, Amy said, gaining confidence. It looks for heat, for electromagnetic signatures, for artificial chemicals. Sergeant Carter has none of these things. He has only what the jungle provides. Your sensors are perfect, General. They simply cannot find something that exists entirely within nature. Silence filled the command center down in the jungle. Danny had reached the final kilometer. His body ached. His lungs burned. Every muscle screamed for him to stop, to rest, to move faster. But he maintained his pace. Slow, patient, invisible. A drone hovered 30 meters to his left. Its sensors swept back and forth, searching for any sign of life that did not belong to the jungle. Danny watched it through half-closed eyes. He did not hold his breath that would cause his heart rate to increase. Instead, he breathed with the jungle, his chest rising and falling in rhythm with the wind through the trees. The drone moved closer. 20 meters. 15. Danny remained motionless. He was a fallen log. He was a pile of dead leaves. He was the shadow of a cloud passing overhead. 10 meters. The drone's sensors were so close he could hear them humming. In the command center, everyone watched the thermal display. They could see the drone clearly. They could see every animal, every heat-producing organism in the area. They could not see Danny. This is impossible, Morvax whispered. the drone passed directly over Danny's position. Its sensors recorded mud, decaying vegetation, and several species of insects. Nothing else thought it moved on. Danny waited 60 seconds. Then he began to move again, sliding through the undergrowth like a snake, like a shadow, like a memory of something that had never truly been there. Extraction point is 500 meters ahead, a technician reported. If he maintains his current pace, he will arrive in approximately 27 minutes. Can we intercept him? Morvax asked. Commander Yeltrix shook his head. We do not know where he is, sir. We cannot intercept what we cannot find. Zorvan, who had been standing with the other eliminated soldiers, moved forward. His black eyes were wide with something that looked like shock. I mocked him, he said quietly. I called his methods primitive. I said he would fail in the first 100 meters. He turned to look at the screens showing empty jungle. How can dirt and leaves defeat sensors worth more than a starship? No one had an answer. They could only watch and wait. Somewhere in that jungle, a ghost made of mud and patience was about to change everything the galaxy believed about humanity. The extraction point was a small clearing at the base of a rocky hill. 3 drones circled overhead, their sensors focused on every approach. This was the final barrier, the most heavily monitored area of the entire assessment course. No soldier had ever reached this point undetected during previous tests. In the command center, every eye was fixed on the screens. General Morvax stood with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. The room was completely silent, except for the soft hum of equipment. Movement? A technician said suddenly. Northern approach. Something is. Everyone leaned forward. On the thermal display, a small heat signature appeared at the edge of the clearing. It was faint, barely distinguishable from the surrounding vegetation. As they watched, the signature grew slightly stronger. Is that him? Admiral Senth asked. The technician studied his readings. Negative, sir. Analysis indicates it is a small mammal. Local wildlife. They waited. Minutes passed. The drones continued their patrol. Nothing else moved. Then, at the southern edge of the clearing, the jungle itself seemed to stand up. No one saw him approach. No sensor detected his movement. One moment, there was only empty space beside a fallen tree. The next moment, a figure was rising from the ground like a spirit emerging from the earth. Itself, Danny Carter stepped into the extraction point. The mud on his body had dried into a dark crust that matched the jungle floor perfectly. The leaves and branches woven into his clothing rustled in the wind, indistinguishable from the vegetation around him. Only his eyes, calm, steady, gray, showed that he was human. Target detected, the computer announced. Extraction point reached. Assessment complete. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Amy let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. He did it. He actually did it. Commander Yeltrix stared at the screen where Danny now stood in full view of the drones. 4 hours and 12 minutes. He crossed 5 kilometers of sensor-monitored jungle without being detected once, using nothing but mud and plants. General Morvax turned slowly to face the others in the command center. His expression was difficult to read, but something had changed in his yellow eyes. The doubt was gone. In its place was something that looked almost like respect. Bring him to the debriefing chamber, he ordered. I want to speak with him personally. An hour later, Danny stood before the 3 generals in a circular room high in the orbital station. He had cleaned the mud from his face, but traces of it still clung to his hair and uniform. He looked tired but calm. The same calm he had shown throughout the entire assessment. Explain, Morvax said simply. Danny considered the question. Your technology is designed to detect things that exist outside of nature. Energy signatures. Artificial chemicals. Heat variations. My camouflage used nothing but natural materials. Mud, leaves, plant pigments. The sensors could not find me because I was not using anything they were programmed to detect. But the heat from your body, mud is an excellent insulator. It absorbs body heat and radiates it slowly, matching the ambient temperature. After 30 minutes, my thermal signature was identical to the ground beneath me. And your movement? I moved with the jungle, not through it. When the wind moved the trees, I moved. When the wind stopped, I stopped. The motion trackers detected only natural patterns because I became part of those patterns. Admiral Sent stepped forward. His 4 arms were folded across his chest. I have commanded armies that conquered star systems. I have seen technology that can destroy planets. But I have never seen anything like what you did today. He paused. How did your species develop these techniques? Danny thought about the question. Necessity. For most of our history, we were not the strongest or fastest creatures on our planet. We survived by being clever, by watching, by learning. We became invisible because our lives depended on it. He looked at the generals directly. Every human carries 200,000 years of survival instinct. It is written in our bones. We do not need technology to disappear. We just need to remember what we are. Observer Prime Velen spoke for the first time. Her translucent form shimmered in the light. We have spent millennia developing camouflage technology. We have invested trillions of credits in sensors and countermeasures. And today, a human with mud and patience defeated all of it. She tilted her head. What does this mean for the coalition? General Morvax was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. It means we have underestimated humanity. Badly. He turned to Danny. Sergeant Carter, I am authorizing full military integration for human soldiers in the coalition. Your performance today has demonstrated capabilities we did not know existed. He paused. I am also creating a new training program. Every species will learn these techniques. And you will teach them. Danny blinked. Sir? You are hereby promoted to Instructor First Class. You will train our best soldiers in primitive human concealment methods. Morvax allowed himself a small smile. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy will learn how to become invisible using mud and leaves. There is something poetic about that. Later, Danny stood in the observation room where he had started. Amy was beside him, her face glowing with pride. You did it, she said. You changed everything. Not me, Danny replied. 200,000 years of ancestors who learned to hide from things that wanted to eat them. I just remembered what they taught us. The door opened and Zorvan entered. The Nethix hunter looked different now. The arrogance was gone from his posture. He approached Danny slowly. I owe you an apology, Zorvan said. I called you primitive. I said you would fail. I was wrong. Danny nodded. You were not wrong about me being primitive. You were just wrong about what that meant. Zorvan was silent for a moment. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind since the assessment ended. Will you teach me? Your techniques? The old ways? Danny looked at the alien hunter, this creature, who had mocked him just hours ago and was now asking to learn from him. In that moment, he understood something important. This was not about proving humanity's worth. This was about sharing knowledge, about becoming stronger together. Yes, Danny said. I will teach anyone who wants to learn. Through the window, the jungle moon turned slowly in the darkness of space. Down there, somewhere in that sea of green, Danny Carter had proven that the oldest methods could defeat the newest technology. He had shown the galaxy that being primitive was not a weakness. Sometimes, it was the greatest strength of all. The coalition released its new training directive 3 days later. Every species would study human concealment techniques. Instructors from Earth would be stationed throughout Coalition space. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had spent millennia perfecting invisibility technology. It took one human with mud and bushes to show them they had been looking in the wrong direction all along.